all this time, again, we've been talking about the physics of interstellar flight. And I know that there are probably a lot of people here saying, well, isn't there something else that we need to be adding into here? And this is what we're going to talk about now. We're going to move on. And I want to have Dr. Catherine Denning, who is an anthropologist, and she looks also very much at what goes on in terms of humans and involved in different kinds of systems. I want her to tell us why a human being is not a technical problem, and then we'll continue to move on from that point of view.
Thank you, Meg. So I'm an anthropologist. I'm also a Canadian, which will become relevant in my next talk. I'll just flag that to you here. I'm primarily going to be talking about things that are here and now rather than the far future that my colleagues have just been discussing. Basically, humanity is entering a new era as a spacefaring species, as we know, and there are, I think, crucial new conversations which must be fostered. The blue top edge of this slide is the Earth's atmosphere viewed from the International Space Station. Perhaps may recognize as the view. The bottom line is one that the rest of us are more familiar with, which is Earth's population curve over thousands of years. So we evolved on this world as biological entities in tiny, vulnerable populations, and we are now beginning to leave it as beings who've made indelible marks upon our planet through our technology and through our numbers, and who are beginning to engineer ourselves. Space is presently a nexus of powerful interests: military, commercial, scientific, and political. New space races are underway, races between nations and races among corporations who aspire to outrun governments. Citizens of the world are constantly hearing plans, both private and government-sponsored, both international and emphatically not, for missions to the moon, Mars, asteroids, and beyond. And some of our crucial international legislation is from another era, a time before multiple nations had launch capabilities, a time before dot-com billionaires, ubiquitous social media, and crowdfunding. So it's in this new context that the idea of making interstellar flight a reality has crystallized. This is where the Canadian part comes in. I think it's easy to hear this incredible idea, this idea that within a century we might build the capability for interstellar flight. I think it's easy to hear that incredible idea and dismiss it as improbable fiction. And I think it's easy to file it as something not worth thinking about right now, a quirky American project, well suited for press releases, not worth the attention of serious scientists and policymakers who have myriad imminent concerns. But I think it would be very unwise to dismiss it in that way. And here's why. It's not just an idiosyncratic American dream. It's an incredibly powerful idea that can serve to organize humanity's collective imagination of space. Because the vision that Dr. Jamieson and her colleagues have articulated, it cannot yet be specific in the technical details of starships. We've got some wonderful starts, but certainly we don't know how we're going to get there from here. But the values and the social and political principles at the core of the project are clear: inclusivity, equity, interdisciplinarity, the necessity of doing science and making technology that will improve the lot of humans here on Earth. And these are the principles of peace and collaboration under which we are gathered here. So the 100-year Starship project will not get humans to another star system anytime soon, but what the idea can do here and now and next year and on the durations of concern to Horizon 2020 is foster essential conversations about humanity's future in space and help build an educated international citizenry able to have those conversations. So the technologies of space have transformed our world, and they will continue to do so. Just as a century ago, the airplane reconfigured everything from communications to warfare to epidemic patterns to trade, immigration, vacations, spaceflight is also increasingly transformative. But what of the human in space? So far, comparatively few of us have gone. But more will. And I'm talking here, when I'm talking about humans in space, I'm not talking about our soaring minds, I'm not talking about our technological accessories and our habitats, but our actual bodies. Our bodies limit us, and it's tempting, therefore, to regard the human as a technical problem. For example, our biology is tremendously inconvenient for interstellar flight. We have short lifespans, we're soft, we're squishy, all kinds of difficult things. But on the assumption that we should go anyway, Some speculative work has proposed solutions which would in other contexts be regarded as inhumane or as, in fact, violating human rights. For example, it would be ideal to put humans in stasis for long interstellar journeys, and yet there's only one kind of human that we can currently freeze successfully: embryos. So one brainstorming paper, which was a brilliant technical solution, suggested a ship of frozen embryos which would eventually be gestated in artificial wombs and raised by androids. It's a good solution to the time-space problem of interstellar flight. However, it is eyebrow-raising. We don't have those capabilities now. They are thinkable. Should that research be done, or should it be blocked with everything that we've got? These technologies might make sense in the interstellar context, but do we want them on Earth? Or even to take a much, much more simple case, how can we find out ethically whether or not a human female can have a successful pregnancy in space? Would medical ethics not dictate that she should return to Earth for safety? Is it ethical to try and raise an infant in an environment that no human child has yet experienced and survived? How can we even get preliminary data while protecting the rights of the child? The list of questions is long. What kinds of experimentation and human modification should be acceptable? What should be actively discouraged? What should be governed by legislation that is not yet written? Do we need to draft additions to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights or to the Declaration of Helsinki? So the realms of the technically possible and the morally acceptable will evolve over the next century, just as they have over the last century. I think that the 100-year Starship can lead a long-term conversation in which plans for a sustained human presence in space adhere to rigorous human rights criteria and are subject to vigorous debate. I think there is no better place to launch that conversation than here, at this gathering of parliamentarians, policymakers, and researchers who are devoted to common ideals which center upon respect for all humans and with hard-won knowledge of how to sustain conversations upon which the future depends. And for my own part, I believe that this conversation will be of significance to every future human being. Thanks.